Welcome to my presentation. My presentation today is over computer hacking. It is for the class CSET 4850, which is Computer and Network Security. My name is Aaron Snyder, and I hope you enjoy the information that I deliver today. Alrighty, so considering my presentation is over computer hacking, I think it would be important that we define what computer hacking is. As defined by Malwarebytes, computer hacking is activities that seek to compromise digital devices, such as computers, smartphones, tablets, and even entire networks. Computer hacking, as the world knows it today, is perceived as a dangerous thing that could potentially have an impact on everyone in the developed world. That's a good reason that the world has that perception, because computer hacking is as ubiquitous as computing itself. In the US, a data breach costs a company, on average, $8.19 million. And it's an increase from $7.91 million just 3 years ago, and more than twice the global average. With all of that being said, how does that affect us all? How computer hacking affects us all. This slide will be dedicated to the individual or the smaller scale of how hacking affects us. So, hacking itself comes in many variations and forms that have plagued personal security, business security, and networks at large. Some uncommon hacks that fall under the blanket term of computer hacking are ransomware, browser hijacks, rootkits, denial of service, also known as a DDoS attack, viruses, Trojans, worms, and unfortunately, many others. There are even some deceiving social engineering tactics that are used to obtain unwanted access to digital devices as well, that are commonly used nowadays. You may have heard of some of these or get some almost every day on your own cell phone. You'll get a call, and it's basically a socially engineered way of a perpetrator to get your personal information. These attacks happen on a grand scale and more commonly on a small personal scale. In fact, anyone with a digital device that has internet connectivity potential is prone to being attacked. So that means me and you. An example of a small-scale attack would be downloading a malicious attachment from an email, or even connecting to a public Wi-Fi at McDonald's or maybe Starbucks. There could be a hacker skimming through the packets looking to glean your personal information if you access an unsecured site. Unfortunately for us all, computer hacking doesn't just affect the individual. Large-scale companies and corporations are always under attack. And it's with the same intention and motive, which is ultimately to get leverage for financial purposes or information which will ultimately lead to a source of stolen income for the perpetrators or the hackers. So almost every major company has had data breaches and their systems compromised. And if they haven't been compromised yet, I'm sure somebody's working on it at the moment, because there's just too much of a financial incentive for systems, databases, and information to not be hacked. An example of this, in 2013, Adobe, you might have heard of them, they made Adobe Photoshop. Their database for customer information was hacked. So the initial reports was that 3 million encrypted customer credit cards and user logins were stolen in this attack. After this made it to court and proceedings and litigation happened, they ended up finding out that 38 million active users were actually compromised. So the company had to pay $1,100,000 in legal fees strictly alone. That's just the legal fees going through litigation to cover themselves. That does not include what they had to pay to the customers that were affected by their information being leaked. So, like I said, that's $1.1 million in legal fees, and not including what they had to pay to the customers. So you can see that computer hacking has a big impact on everyone, large and small. In the world of computer hacking, there are white hat and black hat hackers. So what are white hat and black hat hackers. White hat hacking are essentially the good guys. They're the good guys in the world of computer hacking, and they are referred to as white hat or essential, ethical hackers. And they actually are essential as well, because companies need them to do penetration testing to basically highlight the problem before it's exploited by a black hat hacker. These people are generally employed or contracted by a company to identify the flaws in the software, hardware, or network. White hat hackers have permission in advance from the company to access the systems and conduct penetration tests or other tests to identify potential weaknesses with the intent of fixing the shortcomings and making the system more fortified. Usually these are written negotiations or permissions, and it gives the white hat hackers or the contracted penetration testers access to their system. On the flip side of that, we have black hat hacking. These are the hackers of the movies that you see, the person in the shadows pounding on a keyboard, looking all mischievous. The black hat hackers are, they do not have permission to breach a database, but they do it anyway. Typically it's with malicious intent. Maybe they want to leverage the information that they've stolen with a ransom, or maybe they get information that can lead to a bunch of customers' login user information or credit cards, which will ultimately lead them to a financial income as well. Black hat hackers are frowned upon in the industry and obviously in society, because nobody wants to be stolen from, and it's a digital version of robbing a person. All right, now that I've outlined the dangers of hacking, the threats of hacking, the disadvantages of what can come from computer hacking, what can we do as an individual, business, small and large, to prevent computer hacking? So, what can we do to help mitigate computer hacking or getting hacked ourselves? The first thing that I would like to bring up is a tool that we can use, which is making a strong password. The first thing to do when making a good password is to make the password long. The length of the password will give the attacker more trouble simply because of its length. With the programs, the brute force, and the dictionary attacks, the longer the password, the longer it'll take for them to crack it, and the harder it'll make it. There's also a need to use uppercase and lowercase letters. In addition to the uppercase and lowercase lettering, it is important to have numbers and especially special characters in the password. The combination of the length, the alphanumeric characters, and the special characters are the best defense against the common dictionary and brute force attacks that are done by hackers in this day and age. A final protective measure to take in regard to how to make your password the least susceptible to being hacked is to change it often. I just started this actually in the last 4 years I've been at university, and I'm glad I have. I've had a couple of data breaches, and luckily for me, I was one step ahead of the curve because I had updated all of my passwords. It can be exhausting with the housekeeping. I have to write it down in certain areas, personal information I have around the house, and it can be exhausting. I understand how it could be seemingly a waste of time, but it can save you thousands of dollars that you can never get back possibly if you have a data breach, and once your information makes it to the dark web, it's not good for you. The next tool that you should implement to mitigate computer hacking is an antivirus. A single user can implement this defense. It's pretty easy to download. So that might bring up the question, what is an antivirus? Antivirus is a software that can detect, block, and remove a virus, ransomware, or malware that was unknowingly installed on your machine. The antivirus software will also alert the user when they have access to a site that is not safe. So if you go on a site that sounds an alarm, your antivirus will let you know, and you'll know not to input your information and to leave the site. Also, the periodic scans that are performed by a good antivirus will also identify and delete potentially invasive code. So maybe you've done something throughout the day that you downloaded or put something on your machine that was malicious. Your antivirus periodically does scans. If it didn't catch it then, maybe later it'll catch it as it goes through the downloaded code, and it could delete that and alert you later that you dodged a bullet, basically. Having an antivirus installed is an easy, proactive measure to take, and it's just another tool in the layers of protection that is necessary to take in shielding our valuable information. The third tool that I bring to you is keeping your operating system, web browser, and applications updated. Our operating systems, such as Windows, our web browsers, such as Chrome, and software and applications, which vary drastically, but any software or applications that are on our machine are all prone to being hacked. Luckily for us, and luckily for you watching, the companies that own the operating systems, the software, and the web browsers such as Chrome, they're constantly updating and protecting their software, operating system, or application because they don't want to lose users because of security breaches. So they're always offering these updates, and it's important as the user to make sure that you keep updated, and as new patches arise, you keep up on those as well. Keeping your operating system, web browser, software, and applications updated and current is essential in keeping up to speed with the latest security offered. Because these security breaches are happening on a daily basis, or hourly, or every minute. I mean, right now there's somebody trying to breach a system. There are just attacks going on all the time. And as soon as a company such as Windows finds out about one of these, they release an update. So it's important for you as the user to update. This is a really simple thing you can do, but a very important thing to do. So that's why I put in here. It's a no-brainer, just to make it a habitual thing to update your operating system, web browser, and applications. Generally, the applications will prompt you to update. Sometimes it's annoying, but it's necessary to do. And to update your operating system is generally prompted after a restart. If not, you can simply do a Google search and find out how to update your operating system as well. Okay, the fourth tool that I present to you today is firewalls. So there's always communication traffic between the client and the server when operating a machine. A firewall can be used to help monitor this traffic, or block this traffic, or filter this traffic. That's the beauty of firewalls. So Cisco, who has been in the firewall game for a few decades now, at least a couple decades, they define a firewall as a network security device that monitors incoming and outgoing traffic and decides whether to allow or block specific traffic based on a defined set of security rules. Firewalls, such as the firewalls that Cisco offers, have been used in the network security for 20 years or more. And I want to highlight that the one that I'm referring to here would be a hardware firewall. So a firewall is a barrier between a user's secured internal network and all the untrusted and potentially malicious network outside of that safe zone. Firewalls play an extremely important role in the defense against computer hacking, so it is crucial to understand their utility in different forms. And the forms that I'm referring to here is software and hardware. So there's two distinct variations of firewalls. There's software firewalls and there are hardware firewalls, which we'll see here in the next slide. Alrighty, continuing on here, we're going to be going over software firewalls. And software firewalls need to be installed separately on each device individually. The control that software firewalls have on a system are described as granular. That's an adjective used to describe them because they give permissions for one application or one individual feature, or maybe just one device or one system within a network, which makes them a little tougher to use in a large-scale corporation or large scale than some hardware firewalls. So the nature of the firewall being in a software form means that it needs to be individually configured and managed by an administrator, which can be both costly and timely for large-scale business. And by timely, I mean costly again. For the individual user, there's not many disadvantages, and a software firewall should absolutely be utilized on their system. Once again, in the business environment, which encompasses a large intranet of users on the same network, using software firewalls can bring a lot of compatibility issues, as I had said. And in some of those cases, it's best to use the software firewall on an as-needed basis per department based on security risk analysis. Now, continuing on to hardware firewalls. A hardware firewall differs from a software firewall in that it is a physical device that has its own computing capabilities. A hardware firewall is more of a gateway between an internal network and the World Wide Web or other networks. A hardware firewall is useful for keeping packets of data and foreign traffic requests from an untrusted source from entering the local network or machine. Physical firewalls are convenient for commercial use because of the relatively easy setup and efficiency of protecting multiple devices that are on the same network. This is in stark contrast to the software firewalls, as I mentioned before, which needs to be installed on each machine individually, and there may be compatibility issues. Hardware firewall is great in keeping out unwanted traffic or users from penetrating the network, but there's not much that a physical firewall does once that perimeter has been breached, which is why using a combination of both firewalls, software and hardware, is your best bet for protecting yourself from computer hacking. And final tool you can use or implement to protect yourself from computer hacking is email phishing prevention. As I said, it's the last but equally important security measure that can be implemented. Email phishing is actually defined as a type of online scam where criminals impersonate legitimate organizations via email, text message, advertisements, or other means in order to steal sensitive information. That was sourced from WebRoot. New versions of these attacks show up nearly daily or hourly and are a perpetual problem for individuals on their own personal computer and for businesses as well. The problem with these attacks is that the phishing scam is set up to look like a legitimate landing page. So you might get a sign-in verification from Facebook, and you think, oh man, I have to re-sign in so I can get back on my Facebook. You go there, you input your Facebook information, and that does not go to Facebook because it's just a landing page that is plagiarized as Facebook to look like Facebook. You just gave your information to another user, they signed into there and probably got your other passwords. If you're not following the first tool that I use, which is strong passwords and diverse passwords, and now they're going to ultimately follow that wormhole until they get to your credit card information, and they will use that to exploit you for money. So the problem with these attacks is that the phishing scam is set up to look like a legitimate landing page, as I said, and the ultimate goal of these attacks is to gain access to a victim's device. They're going to get you to try to send money or to turn over personal information such as your login information, which ultimately leads to a loss of money. Alrighty, the way to defend against these attacks on the individual and also the large scale is being educated on the subject. So knowing that these spam emails and sometimes emails that are disguised as a known contact can potentially have malicious intent with links that take you to a fraudulent page to insert personal information that will in turn be stolen by perpetrators. It's called phishing because it comes from the word fishing with F-I-S-H-I-N-G, because the decoy emails are essentially analogous to a phishing lure. But the lure that they're using in this case is a legitimate looking email, and they're trying to hook somebody into falling for it and basically catch their information. So understanding the risk involved in the realm of email is key for each person and for a workforce. So I think I would suggest employee training on the risk involved and on the personal level, knowing that they exist, knowing not to click on suspicious links, not to open even suspicious emails, and clear your spam box and to not open spam. Alrighty, this leads us to our conclusion. Alrighty, in conclusion, the threat of computer hacking will continue to be a problem everyone will encounter for as long as we're in this digital age of existence. There is a billion-dollar industry in the underground world of hacking, and as long as a financial incentive exists, the need to protect ourselves and our company assets will exist as well. The first step towards standing up against these criminals is education. So being knowledgeable on the fact that these threats exist is the first step. And understanding that every time that we interact with a machine, a cell phone, or any digital device, the threat will be there. So once an individual is aware that there's a persistent threat that exists perpetually on a computer, they can assess what level of threats are imposed and from there know how to defend themselves properly. So after a person is knowledgeable on the potential hazards of computer hacking, they can assess the security risk and form the proper defenses. Alrighty, in the presentation I had just given you, there were 5 tools that you can immediately implement to help mitigate computer hacks. Once again, these were password protection and strength, antivirus, keeping your operating system, web browser, and applications updated, firewalls, both software and hardware firewalls, and finally, email phishing prevention. Computer hacking is an obstacle that everyone either has faced or will face, but there are proactive defenses that can be taken in avoiding the damage of these attacks. Educating yourself and your workforce on the tools and potential risks is the best defense against the dark world of computer hacking. I hope that these tools help you. I hope that you enjoyed my presentation, and I hope you have a good day. Thank you very much.